everybody, and welcome back to Kelly's Chronicles. We're happy to have you all back here for this week. Hope you had a great week. Um, Danny and I are over here in Rogers, Arkansas, where I grew up, and we're over here at the Walmart Amp doing a show. Got to see some of my best friends today and have some lunch with them, so that was a lot of fun. And then we're headed out to Oklahoma City next. We have a couple more shows, and then we're finishing it out and going to our next show. So we have four more, and then we're gonna head on into our next one. We have Dad Chuck back here with us this week, one of our favorite guests. How was your week this week, Dad?
Real good, actually. The weather is beautiful here in Idaho. We're supposed to drop like about 20 degrees tomorrow and have rain, maybe snow. But it was a beautiful week, warm and beautiful. And then we had our good friend Sue Bell came in from Los Angeles and stayed the week. And so we were like host and tour guides, and we took her all over southeastern Idaho, and just had a wonderful time. So
That's
yeah, and she
good.
left this morning, going back. So
Yeah, I know Sue's a really good friend. She always comes to visit her. You go visit her when you head into LA, visiting all of us kiddos. So
yeah,
that's she's been a good friend for quite a few years now. So that's good. I'm glad she
yep.
came to visit. I know she enjoys Idaho thoroughly. So I'm glad she got to come and
No,
see you
she
guys.
loves it here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, who doesn't when they come and visit Idaho? I mean, I love Idaho. So I enjoy
yeah.
coming home to visit. We want to definitely pick back up where we left off in Georgia. We had a couple of really awesome stories last week in Valdosta, Georgia, which is actually kind of fun because Danny and I just went through Valdosta, and I hopped on the phone with him, and I was like, oh, I was telling him all the fun stories that Dad told me last week. So um, we're gonna pick up right where we left off with Dad, you landing in Valdosta and kind of just getting used to the area and, um, making friends and getting started up at a new school and kind of just getting used to the new environment because it was quite a drastic change from Alaska to Georgia. So I'm sure it had a little bit of getting used to. And so, so you guys were at Moody Air Force Base. And we remember back in Alaska, the living conditions were very kind of awful, kind of pretty
Primitive,
primitive in that trailer
primitive.
park. So very primitive. So how was the living conditions back in the lower 48, as they call it nowadays, and how was it at the Moody Air Force Base for you guys? Was it a much better situation for you, and how was school for you um, down in Georgia, and were you making friends, and what was the town like, back in the 50s down in Georgia?
Well, okay. I'm not real sure where we uh, lived immediately after getting into Georgia, but I'm not sure. But Dad, some way, got a hold of an 8 by 35 trailer, and that was back then. That was a fairly good sized trailer. And I understand that
Hmm.
your trailer, your fifth wheel that you got, is a lot bigger than the one that I was living in Georgia. Anyway, it was a little trailer park about 2 miles about 2 miles from the back gate of the base, the back where the chain link fence would on the would be the north side of the base. So we were about 2 miles from there, and the runway was right, pretty much right on that fence, maybe a maybe a quarter of a mile in from the fence. So the planes came right in by our house, heading for the that 2 mile in because a jet aircraft 2 miles is like nothing. So they were all on their final approach, and they made their turn right even with our trailer. So the landing light shone in through the window over my dresser, right into my bunk bed. I had the bottom bunk, and
Oh
no
wow.
no air conditioning, just just some fans. You have to understand this was in the summertime. It was daily. It would get up to 95. Night it would get down to 85 or 90, and humidity was probably close to 100% all the time because we were right next to the swamp. So yeah. Anyway, we're in a little town called Barrett's. That was just kind of a little settlement there with a handful of houses, and it had two stores. It had one on our side of the road, and then one on the other side of the road because it was a 2-lane paved highway that ran past. Now our trailer sat on a dirt road, but on the other side, like about a quarter of a mile away, was a paved highway with two stores. And one store was probably, I don't know, 50, 75 years old, really old style and very uh, countrified, and just kind of a neat old store. And then the other side of the road, that was the Ruiz's grocery. I don't know what the one on our side was called, but the other side was the Ruiz grocery. Ruiz, I think is how they spell their name. And there was a family business, and I think they slept above the store. Yeah, I think it was like a
Oh,
two-story
okay.
building, and they had a little better selection than the one on our side of the road. And my folks would not let me go over there until I was like probably about 7 or 8. They wouldn't let me, or 8 or 9. They wouldn't let me cross the highway to go to Ruiz's grocery. But after I got, especially when I got my bicycle, I crossed the road. That was,
Oh yeah.
and that side of the road was really a lot of, I guess, like there was some houses lining the road, and it was a dirt road. Everything was dirt. In that part of Georgia, there was a few paved roads, but most roads were dirt. You have to understand that. So yeah, so I crossed the road to go to Ruiz's grocery, and I think they had a gas pump there, if I remember right, and that was just the main. I just like to go over there. It was just a nice a more modern building, and one of the daughters went to school with me, and so I kind of had a connection with that store, and they sold really neat stuff. Like in the summer, they would sell watermelon and sugar cane. So if I get my sugar
Oh
cane
cool.
fix, I go over there and buy like they would sell it by the foot. So I go over and get like 3 foot of
Yeah.
sugar cane for, I don't know, a dime. And that was my candy for the day.
Chew
So
on it.
yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah. And they
cool.
had they had candy in jars too, which I really liked. They had these big jars sitting up on the counter, and you could reach in there and get penny candy. So uh, that's
Oh
back when
yeah.
they actually had penny candy.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah. So
there were a few
that
places that we would go when I was a kid. They would have penny candy there.
yeah,
Not very much.
yeah. And the trailer park that we lived in was there was a huge house right next to our trailer. I mean, like like maybe 100 feet away was this old style antebellum house up on, and it was set up on uh, on rocks or on
Hmm.
blocks, and it was about 3 foot off the ground because that would keep the termites away. I guess I'm not, or maybe the air flow
Oh,
through there would make it cooler. But anyway, this huge
yeah.
house had 3 people living in it. Had an old man. He was about 80 years old, and his wife, and then they had a crippled daughter. She had polio, and
Oh,
her legs are totally useless. But they had a car. They had an old Chevy car with hand controls, and she drove the car. Their Her mom and dad didn't drive,
that's
so
cool.
she drove the car.
Look at her.
And and they had, and then right behind our trailer, kind of behind the house, was this old barn. And I'm not sure whether it was a tobacco barn or just an old barn full of hay or something. But they had a carport on the end of this barn, and the wasp loved that carport. There were
Oh,
probably 100 paper wasp nests in the carport. And one day,
golly.
the old man's name was Mr. Ham, Hamm. And Mr. Ham come to me one day and he says, "Got to get rid of them there wasp nest up there in that carport. They gonna get on bite us if we don't get rid of them." I said, "Okay." He said, "I'm gonna give you a fishing pole and gonna have a rag tied on it, and I'm gonna set fire to that rag. Now, I want you to put that rag up there and burn them wasp nests down." I said, "Okay." So he gives me this cane pole about 10 feet long and puts a rag on there and puts a little oil and a little gasoline on there and lights it off. And I'm up there, and you have to know that this barn was, I mean, ancient. It was probably at least 75, maybe 100 years old. So the wood, there was no paint on it. It was just gray, black wood. I'm not sure what is pine or
Oh,
what, but it was old and gnarly. So here I am, this in this wooden carport with a burning rag, and I'm killing all. I'm burning these wasps out. You'd hold it up underneath the nest, and they'd just all burn up and fall down. And I finally got them all
oh,
burned out, and he was happy. He gave me like a quarter or something, and and I was happy. Got a little money, and I've just wondered to this day how I didn't burn that thing down.
you didn't. He didn't
Yeah,
catch that bar. He trusted it. He was like, "Don't worry, we'll be fine."
yeah, and right behind the trailer, there were fig trees, and there was a gallberry bush. Now, gallberry is like a
Oh,
native. It's Gall, gall, like something bitter,
oh,
and gallberry, and and they would get, this particular bush was really big. It was probably 20 feet high and 20 feet around, and it was just like a
mm,
bunch of, like, it wasn't, there was really not much structure to it. It was just these twigs coming out like 10 feet long with blooms all on them, and the bees loved gallberries, and you could get
oh,
gallberry honey. And matter of fact, Mr. Ham was a beekeeper, and he used to use me. He would, when he'd go out to rob the bees, rob the honey, he'd take me along, and he'd say, "You take that smoker there, and smoke them daggum bees so I can get in there." And so I had this
man, he sure liked fire.
like a little thing, and he put like some kind of wood or something in there, and it would just smoke like crazy. And then you'd squeeze a handle, and it would blow the smoke out into the beehives. And
Oh
so
yeah.
he'd send me in first. He'd send me in first, and I'd smoke the bees, and they never bit me. They were just like real calm, collected little honeybees, and I'd smoke the bees, and then he'd come in and take the lid off and take the honey out. That was all gallberry honey, and it was great. And
Oh,
as an aside, if I was messing around and doing something that Mr. Ham didn't like, he'd say, Hey, Skippy, go over and cut me a switch off that gallberry bush. I'm gonna whoop you, boy. Go cut me a switch. Yeah, I'm gonna cut you a switch. And
You're like, oh,
I'd
you're
say,
home.
well, I don't have a knife. I don't have a knife. I can't cut a switch. He says, you're lucky today, boy. I tell you, you cut a switch, I'd whoop you. As a matter of fact, Mr. Ham was the county sheriff back
Oh,
in
wow.
like the 1920s or something, or maybe even in the teens. He was a county sheriff, and he was pretty mean. He'd he said that he would catch stray dogs and put them under his house. He put some fencing around that 3 foot high. He put the dogs underneath
Yeah.
there, and then he said I get a bunch of them, and he said I sometimes I'd shoot them, and sometimes I'd try to give them away. But he says I didn't really like dogs that much. They're noisy and dirty. So yeah,
They don't mean it.
he was a
Goodness.
character. I tell you that was definitely old school Georgia people. I mean,
Yeah.
they were just and you have to understand too that Georgia at that time was Jim Crow South. The blacks
Yeah. That was
were,
still the
they
1950s.
were. There was no. It was all
Segregated.
segregation, and like I went to Pine Grove Elementary, which is uh, kind of on the other side of the Air Force Base. It was about maybe about 5 or 6 miles, so it was past the base, and on the way to Valdosta on that the main road there. And it was
Yeah.
just an old brick schoolhouse, and I remember it had a plaque on it that said school. It was like this building was constructed by WPA, which is a progress administration during the Depression. They built that brick
Mm.
schoolhouse for us, and it was pretty nice. Had a big, you know, had 2 stories, and it had, I would say, maybe a dozen classrooms and a big auditorium, and then a separate lunchroom, little tar paper shack for a lunchroom. Then one then sometime while we were there, they built a walkway off of the back of the school and built a modern building back there in the back for the elementary school. And when I first started going there, the high school that was in that building. It was 1 through 12, and the high school kids rode
Wow.
the bus with us and everything. And then about 1956, right in there, 56, 57, they started busing them to Hayhira. So all the high school kids started going to Hayhira, which is another little town up north of where we were at, and they went there from then on, and it
Okay.
was just like then it just became first through eighth grade, and I was there from the second grade. I did second grade through halfway through my seventh grade, so 5.5
Wow.
years in
It's a
that
long time.
school and in southern Georgia. Yeah, because Dad, see what happened is in 1958, Dad got orders to Turkey, and it was an unaccompanied tour. So he went to Incirlik Air Force Base and Adana, Turkey, which is in southeastern Turkey, pretty close to Syria, and he stayed there
Mm.
18 months. And I got some stories about that too. And that Dad really, I got he brought a bunch of slides back and told all these stories about his adventures in Turkey. And so I can relate to all that, and I got several really good stories about Turkey and his adventures there.
Yeah.
So, but anyway,
That's a
getting back to
long
Georgia,
time.
Okay. Um, Georgia, that part of Georgia was a major producer of tobacco. That
Mm,
was like tobacco was probably the main cash crop for that part of Georgia. And
okay.
there was a kid that I went to school with, and I think I was in like the fifth grade, and he said, "We have a job for you if you want to work in tobacco." And I said, "Oh yeah, yeah, I'll go. I'll make some money." So I worked in tobacco at least one summer, maybe two. Worked in one summer in tobacco. And this tobacco was what they call wrapper tobacco. The leaves were really big. Like normal tobacco, the leaves are not allowed to get very big. They want to so they're nice and tender and everything. But this wrapper tobacco is used to wrap cigars. That's what it's for.
Mm,
And so we would pick the biggest leaves off the bottom, and these leaves were like 2 feet long and a foot wide, and and we would just go. They had a when we were what they call cropping tobacco. They had a mule drawn sled made out of wood, mule drawn sled, and that mule would walk down the rows, and it would be about three or four of us that would be harvesting cropping tobacco and putting the leaves in that sled. And that we did that pretty much for a whole day, and I think we did like about 25 acres or so. And but we didn't
wow.
get all the tobacco for all the plants. We just got the big leaves that one day, and then maybe in a week we go back and get more big leaves. But they wanted to have those big leaves, so we did that, and then we did. There was other things we could. I don't know if we want to go into all of the process of curing this tobacco, but it was pretty neat. Yeah, I got some stories about that too. I could do a whole session just on tobacco.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
will tell one
I'll make
story
a note of it.
about the. Okay, I'll tell you one story. One story is we'd finished our day, and we were heading. We'd got paid. It was on a Friday, so we got paid, and we were about three or four of us in the back of his pickup truck, and all back there, cutting jokes, and older boys smoking cigarettes, and they had a paper bag full of banana peppers. I don't know where they got them from. That paper bag full of and these big old banana peppers. They're like 8 or 9 inches long, and a big around like a. I mean, they're pretty good size. And these old boys go, "Hey, Skippy," says, "Tell you what, if you eat one of them there banana peppers, we'll give you all our money we made today. All us boys here will give you all. Yeah, like $5." I said, "Really? You're kidding me?" "No, we're dead serious. You eat one of them banana peppers, we'll give you our money." So I picked one out. I think I got a green one. I did. I said the red ones are going to be really hot, so I'm gonna get a green one. So I got that green one. I took about 3 bites of that thing, and I hit the seeds in. Oh man, it was red. It was hot, man. I mean, I was suffering and sweating and spitting and trying to get a drink of water. They had an old jug there, and I was trying to drink all the water. And they're laughing. They're cracking up. "What's the matter, Skip? Too hot for you?"
Oh my
Because I was
gosh.
Skippy back then. I don't know if I
Yeah,
made that clear that I was Skippy
you did.
back then, or Skip.
You
Yeah.
did.
So that was my name when I wasn't Chuck. I was Skippy. Anyway, yeah, they had a good time. Those teenage boys just laughing it up, and watching me
Oh, that
suffer.
sounds like fun.
I
Sounds
didn't
like
get the
good friends.
$5.
Nope. No, you did not.
Yeah.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
It's good times out on the Georgia farms.
Yep, yep. And at the end of the day, we'd crop or what we were doing, whatever we were doing, because there's a whole process to get the tobacco ready to sell. But at the end of the day, end of the workday, we would go down to the main farmhouse, and we would sit on the porch drinking. That she'd make sweet tea for us, So you had sweet tea and
Oh
boiled peanuts.
yeah.
And boiled peanuts, I'm telling you, in Georgia, that's the snack of the day. You got it. And she had a big giant kettle with boiled peanuts. We just had to eat, I don't know, 10 pounds of them and 5 gallons of sweet tea. Yeah, it was just
You
a
still
fun.
love
They were
boiled
really,
peanuts.
really sweet people. I really loved. They just
Oh, that's
made
awesome.
me like part of the family. And we worked
That's really
hard.
cool.
Didn't make a whole lot of money. I probably didn't earn $10 all summer. It was like, I don't know, 50 cents a day or so. But we just had a
That's a lot of
really
money
good
back then,
time.
though.
And yeah, I could buy a lot of penny candy. But
Yeah.
I can't remember what I got paid. It wasn't much, maybe $1 a day. Maybe that was what I think that might have been. It was $1 a day, and I think the bigger boys, got $5 a day because they were
Yeah.
working doing some of the heavy lifting and stuff. And they were
Okay.
there was some stout boys. I'll tell you, you didn't mess with them old George Farm boys.
No.
They would deconstruct you. Yeah, they were they were
Take you
stout.
back.
Yeah.
That's
Well, I
yeah.
tell you,
That's I mean that's some
I'll
hard
tell you how
work.
strong they were. Is we would load tobacco in the back of a pickup truck. You could get 3 bundles in the back of a pickup truck, which is 1,500 pounds of tobacco. And those boys would pick up a 500-pound bundle of tobacco and put it in the back of the truck.
Whoa. Yeah. That's
Yep.
those are some stout boys right there. Dang. Heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Whew.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Because it
yeah,
would
that
be
that's some
because they
heavy.
wrapped it in canvas. So anyway,
Okay.
yeah, I'll go on someday about tobacco. Maybe next time.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Well, I'll make a note of
Yeah.
it for one of our future
Okay.
episodes. We'll
Yeah.
do an
That'd be good.
episode on
That'd be a good question to ask.
tobacco.
Like, tell us about processing tobacco for sale.
Tell we want to know.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yeah. Because I did. I did the
I like
whole
hearing
thing.
about the old farming processes back in the day. There's a there's a lot of stuff that you
Yeah.
had to do to get just, you know, nowadays it's all manufactured and it's all done through, factories and stuff, but back then it was all by hand. All of it.
Yep. Yep. And
There's
the whole process was very labor intensive. Took a lot of
yes.
manpower, and but the end product was, I guess, world class. It
Yeah.
sold real well. They had the tobacco sale barns down in Valdosta, and I did go down there a couple times to the sale barns and watch them. Yeah, and like I said, we can go through that. That's a whole whatever, a whole podcast
Yeah.
just on
Be fun.
tobacco farming in southern Georgia in the early or to the mid century,
Yes. Yeah.
mid
Mid
19th century when I
mid
grew up.
19th century, the mid
Yeah,
1900s, I guess you could say. So that
yeah,
so
I got to digress just a little bit. I think I
okay.
talked about the Pine Grove School. The
Mhm.
Pine Grove School was on a hill, not a big hill, but on a hill on above the main road. The other side of the road was a wooden schoolhouse. That was where the
Mm.
black kids went, at the
Oh
bottom of the
wow.
hill, in a wooden school.
Yeah.
So we were on the
That's
top of the hill in
crazy.
the brick school. So that's just a good example of
Of
that
the separation.
segregation and the I guess the attitude of the governing powers of Georgia at that time. They didn't consider
Yeah.
the blacks to be worthy of much. They gave them minimal
Uh,
care and minimal jobs. They had jobs. Most of them had jobs, but I'll tell you
yeah,
about
but they
that
were
sometime, about the jobs that they had. They were, I mean, talk about living and working in hell. They did.
Mm,
So they,
man,
yeah, they were. I'll talk about that sometime
rough.
about
Yeah, that'd be really
the
interesting
marine
to.
stores that were. See, Valdosta, Georgia, was the world center for marine stores, which is basically turpentine and pine sap.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can. I'll.
Oh,
That's
that's
a
rough.
whole big deal. Whole
I
big
can't
deal
even
there. I can
imagine
talk about,
that.
and that's what the blacks did. Though that was their main employment was working collecting
Mm,
the pine tar out of the pine trees. That was their main job. Hundreds of them working in there, working down in Valdosta in the big factory down there, big factory down there where they processed it.
mm.
That's how they make, pine sol
Yeah.
comes from Georgia.
Oh,
I
yeah.
bet you, I
Okay.
bet you it still comes from Georgia.
Pro-
So,
I have to look that up. I have to look
yeah.
that up. But
Okay.
that's crazy to think about, like how separated it was, and kind of how life was for the white folks and how life was for the black folks. It's just
Yep.
kind of, it's so
Yep.
crazy, and I don't think we
Yep.
really get a firsthand look at that life unless you talk to older folks that were
Yep.
there at that time,
Like me.
like yourself, like you saw it firsthand. You kind of got a witness on the outskirts of it. You weren't like in the middle of it, but you definitely got to see kind of what life was like for everybody, which is
Yeah.
wild. So,
Yep.
um, so yeah, we'll definitely make a note of that for uh for a later podcast on tobacco and some of the different jobs and so we're running a little bit short on time and the show just ended, so
Okay.
I got to do loadout. But we're we got some really good just kind of some some firsthand looks into the southern part of the country way back in the 50s, which honestly, I mean, textbooks will tell you what history was like, but you don't really meet a lot of people that want to like sit down and explain to you what life was like, which is, I think, is really cool that we can kind of talk about what the town was like, what the farming life was like, what jobs were like for both sides of the spectrum, and really what life was like in our country, you know, post World War II.
Yep.
I think that's going to be a lot of fun for us, and I need to sit down and get a little bit better at thinking of questions to ask, because I think sometimes I forget to do that, and I just kind of lose track of time because I'm out
Yeah.
here on this wild
You know,
road. So
and I'm kind of loose too. I'm like skipping around a little bit. So yeah, but
yeah,
I
but
just
what
like
that's the fun
I
part
like
about it.
yeah, I kind of like there's like I can just talk about school, about what it was like to
Yeah,
go to school there. I mean pretty it was, this was not city life. This was
no, this is a country.
this was country life, and we had like a tar paper shack for our lunchroom in this school. And every day at
Yeah,
lunch, I tell you, every day at lunch, we would get cornbread muffins.
wow,
That was, I mean,
that's
every day. They had
crazy. Every day.
like a little, they had the cupcake things, the big cupcake, yeah, and
Yeah,
they'd put, and so we'd have a cornbread muffin, and we'd always have the half pint milk things, and mom would sometimes make me a sandwich, and sometimes I would buy lunch. I think it was a quarter for lunch, and yeah, a lot of beans, a
that's
lot of canned
crazy.
corn,
A lot of beans. Yep.
a lot of cornbread, and
Yep.
I don't remember having too much meat. I think we'd have occasionally have hot dogs or something, and so mom would always make me a make me a sandwich. But back then, they didn't have these Ziploc bags. Mom would wrap the
Right.
sandwiches and wax paper. And so by 4 hours, like she'd make it like at 7 or 8 o'clock or 7 o'clock, put it in a bag, and I'd take it to school. And by noon, that sandwich was like, yeah, like cardboard or something. It had lost all of its freshness. And
Yeah.
but it wouldn't, Mom she did with what she had. There was, there just wasn't the technology back then. And so, I would
Yeah.
still
That's
eat it.
crazy.
I would still eat it. And
Still eat it and enjoy it.
that's right.
That's
You
right.
will eat it and you will enjoy
So
it. Yeah.
and enjoy it. So
Good old mom.
well,
She tried.
yeah,
She
she did the
tried. I
best she
mean, Dad
could.
had no money, so she,
I
we
know.
shopped at the commissary and just tried to make the
Did the best she
best
could.
of what she just would buy bulk stuff, and she was a fairly good
Yeah.
cook, and she would make the best of it.
Oh
And yeah,
yeah. Grandma was always a
she was a sweetheart.
so oh, she was amazing. I remember her cooking when I was so we'll hop off here for now and we got some good stuff to talk about next week. We'll definitely do the tobacco series or something. We'll do the tobacco podcast. But we're really excited about telling about Georgia. It's going to be definitely a fun quite a few podcasts in Georgia because we got quite a few. You
Yep.
have quite a lot of stories down there. So, but we just want to thank you guys for joining us this week. It was just a little bit of a shorter podcast, but that's okay. We love coming on here. We love just chit chatting and telling stories and having a good laugh, and that's what it's all about. Is just telling stories. So. But we hope you guys all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe out there on the roadways and please spend time with your family and your friends and just make memories like we love to do on here. So, you guys have a great week and